By the end of the 1920s, Bentley was not just winning Le Mans, it was turning the race into a British invasion. Huge green cars thundered through the French night, their engines shaking the pit lane while champagne flowed behind the barriers. Around them stood aristocrats, soldiers, gamblers, and heirs to old fortunes, cheering as if national pride depended on every lap. At the center were the Bentley Boys, wealthy, reckless, and addicted to speed. They bought the cars, raced them, crashed them, and made Bentley look untouchable. For a few glorious years, they turned endurance racing into a mixture of sport, society, and spectacle. But the same image that made Bentley famous was expensive to maintain. Behind the victories, the company was burning cash. This is the story of how Britain's loudest racing legend accelerated straight toward financial disaster. Walter Owen Bentley did not set out to build decorative luxury cars. He wanted machines that could be driven hard for hours and still come back in one piece. Before his name appeared on a radiator badge, Bentley had been trained in the practical world of railways. Then he moved into motor engineering, where he became convinced that better materials and stronger design mattered more than fashionable styling. During the First World War, that belief became urgent. Bentley worked on aircraft engines, including the Bentley rotary engines used by British pilots, and he saw what mechanical failure meant when there was no safe place to stop. That experience shaped the company he founded in 1919. A Bentley was supposed to be fast, but speed alone was not enough. The car had to be solid, stable, and able to tolerate abuse. The early Bentley 3-liter used advanced features for the time, including 4 valves per cylinder, and it was built around a strong chassis rather than delicate showroom elegance. The result was not cheap transportation. These cars were expensive, heavy, and aimed at wealthy drivers who wanted performance with engineering credibility. They had presence, but their real appeal was that they felt serious. A Bentley was not selling fantasy. It was selling the idea that a road car could behave like a machine built for endurance. That made racing almost unavoidable. In the early 1920s, a manufacturer could make claims in advertisements, but a race could expose the truth. Short events proved speed. The 24 hours of Le Mans proved whether the engine, brakes, gearbox, tires, fuel consumption, and drivers could survive a full day and night at competition pace. For Bentley, Le Mans was the perfect courtroom. The race rewarded exactly what Walter Owen Bentley valued: strength under pressure. In 1923, a private Bentley entry finished fourth, and the result showed that the young company belonged on a European stage. In 1924, Bentley won outright, turning a small British manufacturer into a serious endurance racing name. But there was a problem inside that success. Walter Owen Bentley was a careful engineer who believed in controlled strength and long-term reliability. The people most attracted to his cars were often men with money, nerve, and very little fear. What happens when a company built on discipline becomes the playground of drivers who treat danger like recreation? The men who turned Bentley into a legend were not a normal racing department. They were wealthy amateurs, war veterans, gamblers, flyers, doctors, financiers, and social celebrities who arrived with their own money, their own reputations, and a willingness to risk both. The press began calling them the Bentley Boys, although they were not all young and not all alike. Some had titles or family fortunes. Some had military records. Some had already survived crashes in aircraft or cars before they ever climbed into a Bentley at Le Mans. What connected them was not employment by the factory. It was appetite. Wolf Barnato became the most important of them, heir to a fortune connected to South African diamonds, Barnato had the rare combination Bentley needed. He could drive at the highest level, and he could write the checks when the company was in trouble. He did not merely sponsor the adventure from a safe distance, he raced, won, and eventually became chairman of Bentley Motors, using his wealth to keep the firm alive when sales alone could not. Around him gathered men who made the car seem larger than machinery. Sir Henry Tim Birkin was aristocratic, intense, and obsessed with speed. Glenn Kidston had survived wartime flying and naval service, then carried that same nerve into motor racing. Dudley Benjafield was a Harley Street doctor, a serious physician who also spent his weekends driving flat out through the night. There were others too, including Bernard Rubin, George Dollar, and Jack Dunphy, each adding to the sense that Bentley had become a club for men with more courage than caution. Their world moved between extremes. One evening could mean dinner in Mayfair, champagne, tailored clothes, and gossip columns. The next could mean a freezing night stint at Le Mans. Goggles smeared with oil, headlights shaking over narrow public roads, and another car appearing out of the dark at more than 100 miles per hour. That mixture changed Bentley's image. Walter Owen Bentley had built cars around strength and endurance, but the Bentley Boys gave those qualities a face. They made the mark look British, rich, reckless, and victorious. They also created tension inside the company because their hunger for speed did not always match the founders' cautious engineering instincts. And no one exposed that tension more clearly than Tim Birkin, the man who believed Bentley needed something Walter Owen Bentley distrusted, a supercharger. Before Birkin's supercharger argument could divide Bentley, Le Mans had already given the company its greatest proof. In 1924, a Bentley 3-liter driven by John Duff and Frank Clement won the 24-hour race outright, becoming the first British car to do it. That victory mattered because it matched Walter Owen Bentley's philosophy almost perfectly. The car was not the lightest or the most delicate machine on the grid. It was strong, stable, and built to keep its speed after other cars began breaking apart. Le Mans rewarded exactly that kind of engineering. The win also changed the company's reputation outside Britain. Bentley was no longer just selling fast touring cars to wealthy customers. It had beaten Europe's best over a full day and night on public roads, in rain, dust, darkness, and mechanical punishment. Then came 1927, the race that turned success into legend. Bentley entered with serious strength, but during the night, disaster struck near the Maison Blanche section, known in English as White House. A crash blocked the road and several cars piled into the wreckage. Most of the Bentley team was effectively destroyed in one incident. One car survived badly damaged, the 3-liter driven by Dudley Benjafield and Sammy Davis. Its frame was bent, its bodywork was battered, and it was no longer behaving like a healthy racing car. But Davis brought it back to the pits. The crew made what repairs they could, and the car returned to the race. From there, the victory became less about speed and more about refusal. Benjafield and Davis kept the wounded Bentley running while rivals failed around them. By the finish, the damaged car had won, giving Bentley one of the most dramatic comebacks in Le Mans history. The following years made the pattern look almost inevitable. In 1928, Bentley won again, this time with Wolf Barnato and Bernard Rubin in a 4.5-liter. Barnato was not just funding the company, he was proving himself behind the wheel. In 1929, Bentley reached a new peak. Barnato won again, partnered by Tim Birkin in the larger Speed Six. and Bentleys filled the first 4 places. For British newspapers and wealthy enthusiasts, Le Mans was beginning to feel like Bentley territory. But dominance had a cost. Winning brought attention. Attention raised expectations. And expectations demanded faster cars, stronger entries, and more money. Bentley's victories made the marque famous, but they also pushed it toward heavier spending and riskier ideas, including the one Walter Owen Bentley resisted most, the supercharged blower. Tim Birkin did not look at Bentley's Le Mans dominance and see a finished formula. He saw a threat. The cars were winning, but rivals were getting faster, and Birkin believed Bentley needed more power immediately, not a slower march toward larger engines. Birkin was one of the most vivid members of the Bentley Boys, aristocratic, fearless, stylish, and often dangerously impatient. He had the courage to drive through exhaustion and mechanical trouble, but he also had little interest in waiting for cautious development. To him, the answer was obvious. Add a supercharger, force more air into the engine, and make the 4.5-liter Bentley powerful enough to fight anything in Europe. Walter Owen Bentley hated the idea. His engines were built around strength, smooth breathing, and long-distance reliability. A supercharger, in his view, upset that balance. It added stress, heat, complexity, and strain to a machine whose greatest virtue was its ability to survive punishment for 24 hours. Bentley wanted more capacity and better engineering, not forced power bolted onto the front. That disagreement became personal because Birkin did not stop when the factory resisted. He found support outside the company from Dorothy Paget, a wealthy racing patron with enough money and confidence to back the project. With her funding, Birkin pushed ahead with engineer Amos Villiers, developing a supercharged version of the 4.5-liter away from Bentley's own preferred path. The result looked unlike anything else in the Bentley stable. Its supercharger sat proudly ahead of the radiator, giving the car a blunt mechanical aggression. That exposed blower became its signature. It made the car instantly recognizable, and it gave the Bentley name a new kind of drama, even before the results could justify the risk. Inside Bentley, the project remained controversial. Wolf Barnato allowed it to continue, partly because racing success needed money, and partly because Birkin was not easy to dismiss. But Walter Owen Bentley never accepted it as the right answer. To him, the blower was not an evolution of his design philosophy. It was a distortion of it. That is the central irony of the car. The Bentley most people now picture as the ultimate vintage Bentley was the one Bentley's founder did not want. The blower became an icon because it was bold, noisy, and defiant, but its fame came from charisma as much as engineering success, and that difference would matter when it faced Le Mans. At Le Mans in 1930, Bentley arrived with 2 different answers to the same threat. The works team trusted the 6.5-liter Speed Six, a bigger, stronger machine built for the full 24 hours. Birkin arrived with the supercharged 4.5-liter, carrying the drama of the blower and the risk that came with it. The main danger was the Mercedes-Benz supercharged racer, with Rudolf Caracciola among its drivers and enough power to threaten Bentley's control of the race. Birkin understood that his blower did not need to be the safest car in the field to matter. It could be used as pressure. In the opening phase, Birkin drove the blower like a challenge thrown directly at Mercedes. He chased, attacked, and ran at a pace that made the race feel less like a measured endurance event and more like a duel. At one point, he set the fastest lap of the race. The Bentley's supercharger gave it a hard, shrieking presence, and on the long straights, it became impossible to ignore. That was the point. If Mercedes could be pushed into using its speed too early, the 24 hours might do the rest. Birkin's blower became a fast, fragile weapon, not the safest route to victory, but a way to disturb the rival that could beat Bentley on raw pace. The tactic helped turn the Mercedes challenge into a test of survival, and the Mercedes eventually fell away. The blower did not survive as a winner either. Its Le Mans story ended with mechanical trouble, like so many of its most famous appearances. Across its racing life, it produced enormous speed, unforgettable noise, and a shape that burned itself into memory, but it never delivered a major race victory. Its legend came from the way it fought, not from the trophies it collected. The Bentley that carried the result was the Speed Six. Wolf Barnato and Glenn Kidston drove it with the discipline Bentley trusted most: controlled speed, mechanical sympathy, and enough pace to be there when the faster threats disappeared. They won the 1930 Le Mans, giving Bentley another great endurance triumph at the height of its public fame. But the celebration concealed a weaker truth. Bentley had conquered Le Mans again, yet the company was financially strained, dependent on wealthy patrons, and increasingly vulnerable. In 1930, the car still looked unstoppable on the road. Underneath them, Bentley Motors was beginning to break. Each victory at Le Mans made Bentley look stronger, but the company behind the trophies had a simple problem. Bentley did not sell cheap transport. It sold fast, hand-built chassis to people wealthy enough to pay for coach work, maintenance, and fuel on a heroic scale. That market was small even in good times. Racing made the cars famous, but it also consumed money the road car business could not easily replace. Engines had to be improved, gearboxes strengthened, bodies refined, mechanics paid, transport arranged, and failures investigated. A win at Le Mans was a magnificent advertisement, but it was not the same as a healthy order book. Walter Owen Bentley cared about engineering first. He wanted cars that were strong, durable, and properly developed. That made the machines exceptional, but it also made them expensive to build. The company could not survive on romance alone. It needed steady sales of very costly cars to a narrow group of buyers. For years, Wolf Barnato helped close the gap. He was not just a driver with money. He became Bentley's chairman, put in large sums of his own fortune, and gave the firm time when ordinary finance might have run out. His victories made the story even brighter, because the man saving Bentley was also winning in its cars. But Barnato's wealth could not change the structure of the business. He could cover losses for a time. He could support racing for a time. He could protect Bentley from immediate danger for a time. He could not make a shrinking luxury market behave like a mass market. Then the Great Depression turned weakness into crisis. After the Wall Street crash, confidence collapsed across the wealthy world. Buyers who might once have ordered a large Bentley delayed purchases, chose cheaper cars, or disappeared from the market entirely. Banks became less patient. Dealers found fewer customers. The cars still had prestige, but prestige did not pay suppliers on schedule. The Bentley Boys had built their public image on speed, parties, alcohol, private wealth, and disregard for ordinary limits. That image sold newspapers and filled grandstands, but it also belonged to a fragile world. Fortunes could shrink, reputations could sour, accidents could end more than a race. By 1930, Bentley's greatest sporting triumphs were sitting beside its worst financial danger. The party was still loud, but the ledger had started to win. In July 1931, Bentley Motors entered receivership. The company that had won Le Mans 5 times in 7 years could no longer meet its obligations, and the creditors finally moved in. For Walter Owen Bentley, the crisis was not abstract. Receivership meant the future of the firm would be decided by accountants, banks, and buyers, not by the engineer whose name name was on every radiator badge. The racing trophies remained, but control of the company had slipped out of his hands. There was immediate interest in the remains of Bentley. One serious rival was Napier, another respected British engineering name which saw value in Bentley's cars, reputation, and technical staff. A rescue by Napier might have kept Bentley more visibly connected to its sporting identity. Rolls-Royce did not want that to happen. Bentley's large, expensive cars had moved dangerously close to Rolls-Royce territory, especially with the 8-liter model, a powerful grand tourer aimed at the very top of the market. Rolls-Royce also understood the value of removing a prestigious competitor before someone else revived it. The takeover became a quiet piece of corporate theater. Rolls-Royce acted through a front company, British Central Equitable Trust, which allowed it to bid without openly revealing its identity. When the deal was settled, the mystery buyer turned out to be Rolls-Royce. Bentley had been acquired by the one firm most capable of preserving the name and most determined to change its direction. Bentley stayed for a time, but not as the master of his own company. He was employed under Rolls-Royce ownership, with limited influence, while major decisions moved to Derby and into a culture very different from the hard-driving world of the Bentley Boys. The new owners kept the Bentley mark alive, but they toned down the wild image that had made it famous. The future Bentley would be quieter, more controlled, and more closely aligned with Rolls-Royce standards of refinement. The old formula of huge engines, public bravado, and endurance racing glory was no longer the center of the business. That was the twist in the ending. Rolls-Royce saved Bentley from disappearing, but the independent Bentley era died in the rescue. The badge survived, the Bentley Boys did not. That is why the Blower endures. It did not become Bentley's greatest winner. The naturally aspirated cars carried the Le Mans record, but the Blower captured the whole contradiction. Walter Owen Bentley's engineering seriousness, Tim Birkin's obsession with speed, aristocratic money, public spectacle, and the spending that helped break the company. The Bentley Boys turned racing into theater, and the crash made the story permanent. A failed supercharged gamble became the image people remembered. Thanks for watching. In the comments, tell me what you think creates a legend: success, failure, or the beautiful chaos between them.